ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and logic has come to cut through the big bad bestiality of Transformers Prime's third season. This is the Voyager price point release of Shockwave, something anticipated by a lot of the fandom after the milquetoast repackaging of the much dinkier Generation Shockwave in the Prime Arms Micron line. Starting off with his vehicle mode, it's clear that Shockwave's decided to bring back the H-Tank loudly and proudly. He's an unashamed alien war machine with little substance other than being an H-shaped mobile platform with a cannon on top. I like the touches of the various swept-back fins and the placement of his iconic chest plate on the front of the vehicle to give the impression of his presence outside of robot mode, but I can't deny that it's simple as all get out, and the really blatant hand chilling out underneath the front bumper area is indefensible. I kinda like this tank mode, but a lot of that is bolstered by a strange fetish for H-tanks. You can also activate his Hyperflux Cannon, a very interesting take on the classic geared spin gimmick whose only flaw is the lack of a solid stop on its downspin. You often have to manually rotate it back into its proper rest position. Oh, and hey, to Beast Hunters this guy up, you can attach 3 pieces of armor that do a surprising amount of alteration to the identity of this alt mode. Now he kinda looks like a giant alien robot lobster tank, right down to a demented one-eyed mandible face where his chest plate used to be. Is this silly? Absolutely. It's also kinda hilarious in the best way. These armor pieces are pretty squidgy and flexible, but not in a manner that could really damage them in a way that I think most collectors will care about. Armor parts aside, Shockwave does everything he can to try and get away from the classic stand-up-and-go H-Tank transformation scheme. His arms are wrapped asymmetrically around a chest that comes together from a few different directions. His legs are a bit textbook, but his feet do a neat flip and slide to alter the shape of his shins. With his backpack folded down and head turned around, Shockwave just barely hits that fine balance of having a quick transformation that still manages to feel kinda satisfying, especially at the Voyager price point. Yo, guys. I think this is a Shockwave. He's imposing as hell and bears a lot of the surface detail of his CG show model. He looks really cool and has the same feeling of upgraded mass over the powerizers that Hunter Prime conveyed to me earlier. And man, that head sculpt, that logic, that eye, that blood-red light-piped optic. His Hyperflux Cannon works in this mode too, and has a great additional function. By unfurling the left tank tread from Shockwave's backpack and hooking it into the cannon, he now has his classic gun hand cable. I found that this barely impedes his poseability, even though it tugs back a little bit now and then. It seems like the joint is strong enough to fight against it, and it's a really smart way to work in this part of his design. I worry a little bit about the long-term health of the flat PVC part that makes up the cable, but it doesn't feel fragile in the least. His Beast Hunter armor does the same trick with the chest plate, but the claw parts now plug a little haphazardly into his shoulders. The chest still looks kinda goofy awesome, but using the claws as shoulder pads just looks thrown together in last minute. They looked far more intentional in vehicle mode, while here, it looks like they got stuck on Shockwave as he walked through a door and he just didn't care to brush them off. Logically, this guy should be pretty decently posable, but I was kinda surprised, and not in the good way. His head has a swivel, and only a swivel. It's actually part of the transformation. Really wish he could look up and down as well. His shoulders are more or less fully posable. They've even got an inwards and outwards motion due to the transformation. They can go forwards and backwards. When you raise them out, there's actually a spring-loaded thingy here so that the shoulder pads move with his arms, which is a really cool effect. His biceps swivel, his elbows move 90 degrees. This wrist is on a ball joint, but it's so tight on the swivel, like the grip is so tight, it can only really move in and out like this, again for the transformation. Trying to turn it is really hard, kind of risky to the plastic, and doesn't really accomplish much. This elbow also works fine, which is great because it's got like the hose attached, and it doesn't really suffer for it. Even getting it all the way out here, it's not like the hose is yanking back down on it. It's got a very pleasant amount of, I was going to say tension, but it's, I guess, a pleasant lack of tension. There is no waist joint. The transformation is perhaps somewhat responsible, but there's so much chunk here, I really wish something had been in there so I could turn him at the waist. His hips, though, are the big bummer. Now, they move forward and backwards fine, and then they ratchet to move outwards, but this is ratchet point 1, and there's ratchet point 2, 3, and 4. There are 4 ratchet points. 1, 2, 3, 4. That sucks, man, because basically, he's either like this, or he's like this. Now, I've heard that the mod is you go in there and you just shave all the ratchets off and apply liberal floor polish to thicken it into a simple swivel like this. And I guess, but that doesn't make this any better. This is terrible. There should have been, like, 3 times as many clicks in there. On the bright side, he's got a thigh swivel. He's got a proper ratchet knee joint, although it is a bit limited, too, in terms of its number of major clicks. He's also got a swivel right below the knee. This is partly due to the transformation, as you're going to be swiveling the thigh on its own. And that's really it. His feet don't move in a meaningful way that doesn't either break up the sculpt or just kind of accomplish nothing. So, this guy's able to loom. This guy's able to do some kind of wild action poses, like, you know, looking at things and shooting at them logically. All voom like that. But he's kind of limited. And that kind of bummed me out once I got my hands on him. Definitely be prepared for not having a wide swathe of poses to put this guy in unless you do some modifications. That kind of bummed me out, especially given just how beautifully robust the Voyager Beast Hunters Optimus Prime Voyager felt. In terms of articulation, this guy kind of feels like a step, or maybe really just a half step, back. This Shockwave is an easy toy to over-anticipate. He has a decent transformation for an H-Tank, a cool cannon gimmick, and a badass-as-hell robot mode, whose Beast Hunter aesthetics are made entirely removable. He really won that equation, getting the clear improvements over the power risers of a Beast Hunter's Voyager, while having the option to remove the extra spikes, since he never had a proper Prime toy until now. Props, Hasbro! But he's got some surprising limitations in his poseability, and it's quite clear to me that H-Tank lovers are by no means a majority in the fandom. He's a good figure, but by no means a figure of the year level grail. While I do recommend this toy, I don't recommend going too far out of your way to get it unless you're a Shockwave lunatic. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I really hope this guy gets some repro labels treatment sooner than later. Adding shiny stickers to all his sculpted but unpainted detail? It's deliciously logical.